I was born in 1975 in Rhodesia, and growing up in the suburbs of Johannesburg for well over a decade instilled a lot of fear inside of me. And it's only now, as I reflect back, just how much fear has been one of the most powerful driving forces of my life, and how fear has moulded me. The influence around me as I grew up helped to instill very, very powerful behaviour patterns within me. And these influences added to deep-rooted problems that I never knew would be possible to overcome. I had spent many, many years in counselling. I'd spent years with psychologists. I'd been on my own journey in many, many ways. And although they were very, very helpful at the time, nothing really could get to the root of the problem. I viewed life in a completely distorted way, and I knew that I needed to do some serious work with myself in order to change that picture of the world that I was seeing. Moving to England at a young age, to say that it tore my life apart would be a real understatement. It was the start of the biggest part of pain to begin the process of overcoming. I got myself into blaming myself, blaming my parents, blaming the world. In fact, if anyone was really, really good at blaming everybody else for the troubles that I had lived, it was me. I spent so much time looking outside myself. I never knew that it was possible, that actually the enemy wasn't outside of me. It was something that had been created inside of me, and it was only by going inside would I begin to be able to put the pieces of the puzzles back in the right place. The abuse that I witnessed from my dad to my mum was on a daily basis. It was very, very painful. My dad was an alcoholic, and he was unemployed, and he suffered with a lot of psychotic disorders, depression, anxiety. My mum did her best to support us, but having 3 jobs meant that my mum was never home. My dad's behaviour became more and more threatening as the years passed, and as a young girl it was very, very painful. It's only now that I look back at my past I realise that actually I suffered an enormous amount of emotional neglect. Gave me major issues in relationships, gave me major issues with being able to connect to people. It was like a big ball of spaghetti, and I didn't know where the end was, and I needed some serious help to find the end so that I can begin untying some of these knots which were keeping me locked in so much pain. My school life was not much better. Every single day I was subjected to some kind of bullying or some kind of abuse. And the verbal abuse began to really take its toll on me, to the point where I didn't really want to go to school anymore. I remember being punched in the eye and running across the field and looking back and swearing that I would never ever go back to that school and suffer that abuse. All I can remember is just being desperate for somebody to listen to me. Instead of being this problem kid, this problem child that was screaming out, just somebody just to sit down and to give me their time. I was this young kid who was just pleading and crying out. When I went home it was dark, when I went to school it was dark. At age 16 I was raped, and the man that raped me also tried to kill me on several occasions. The only solace I really had was my pet, was my little dog. His name was Buster. He was the only being in my life that would give me unconditional love. The day that this man that tried to kill me threatened to take the life of my dog was the day that I began to spiral downhill. It set me up with deep insecurities. In the end, when it came to relationships, I believed that I was only worthy of one thing, because the only way I ever really knew to receive love was physically, as that's what love was associated with. I attempted a suicide on a few occasions. It was mainly a cry out for help. Well, maybe if I die, then these people will realise that there was actually something wrong. Just listening to was all I required. And after attempting that on several occasions, I just decided that the best way to escape living hell would be to take drugs, and that's what I did. The only time that I ever felt loved, the only time that I ever felt that I could connect to that substance of love was when I was high. Unfortunately, I had a few occasions that the drugs nearly killed me, and it was only when I was involved in a serious car accident and I had a fracture on my skull. The car had rolled a few times. Me and the girl that I was driving with at the time, she was high on ecstasy. It was the slow process of a wake-up call. I had started stealing to find money for drugs. I was lying, I was cheating, I was deceiving, anything that I could do just to fill this void. At age 18, I fell pregnant. It was one of the biggest shocks of my life, and I remember running to the phone box to phone a member of my family, and luckily they were there for me to listen down the phone, but this person had very strong views of their own and very strong opinions that I wouldn't be able to cope at such a young age, and I was strongly encouraged to have an abortion. It's only really years later that I felt the pain of that event. I went for counselling for the abortion, but I have to say that it didn't help me at all. I never really dealt with the core issues of exactly what happened there. I slowly started to pick my life up, and I managed to get myself a job, but I started to suffer from such severe panic attacks that I couldn't leave the house for 3 months at a time. I found myself panicking about panicking, and then I would panic at the thought of panicking about panicking, and I got myself into such a vicious cycle, and I got given some pills. And yes, I have to say at the time it was a fantastic plaster, but yet again it never dealt with the core issues. It had left me broken into so many tiny little pieces. If you imagine getting this fine porcelain vase and smashing it on the floor, every little piece was a part of my soul that had just been shattered. I was defragmented on every part of my being. And I had a little girl that I couldn't give up on. I couldn't give up on my soul. And I knew that there was just something inside of me that was worth one last shot. I realised that there is something more to this life than what we can see and feel. And that's probably the only thing that has kept me alive and kept me surviving. The last 10 years have been absolutely amazing, and I have had some fantastic and phenomenal teachers along the way. But I have to say, nothing has helped me the way the Foundations for Living has done. It's almost like somebody has taken the blindfold off my eyes, and I get to see the world in a new way, in a new exciting way, and I realise that everything that I perceive outside myself is merely a reflection of myself. So taking responsibility for myself and for my life has been one of the biggest gifts. It's a blessing because it's helped me reconnect to me, but it's also helped me in a way that I can now pay this forward. If I've managed to reconstruct and build myself to a point where I can now live life and enjoy it, I can thrive, I can get up in the morning and be excited, it means that I can then help other people to do the same. So now actually, not only been able to accept what had happened, but I'm no longer the effect of my past. Now I know what the word freedom truly means. So with me no longer being the effect of my past, it means that I can be the cause of something really amazing and fantastic in my future. So I look at every challenge and difficulty that comes my way as an opportunity to grow. No longer am I a victim of circumstance. I no longer look for a quick fix. Now what I do is I'm looking for long-term fulfillment. If a challenge comes my way, I have the tools in my toolbox to overcome it in a way which will help me grow, like I said, and transform through it so that I can reach a deeper place of peace, freedom, love, and abundance.